I licked Ethan for 8 years and finally felt tired. Coincidentally, his brother Asher has also had a crush on me for 8 years. Asher interrupted my flight and asked me at 10,000 meters in the air if I would marry him. On the day of the wedding banquet, Asher was still nowhere to be seen. When I found him, he was slightly tipsy. My dear brother, who would have thought that Vivian actually chose me? It's just a bit boring, hard to let go. I don't really want to get married, just having some fun, but she pushed too hard. So I turned around and scheduled an abortion, preparing for divorce. But later, in a fit of madness to force me to show up, he jumped from the 18th floor. Asher must have something urgent to attend to, he definitely didn't mean to. At the wedding banquet, Asher's mother held my hand to comfort me, her eyes betraying an undeniable guilt. But until the last guest left, the groom still hadn't appeared, and the wedding banquet I had looked forward to for so long had completely turned into a joke. Ethan sent me an address, and with a glimmer of hope, I rushed to the Royal City Bar overnight and really found Asher. Someone placed the microphone right in front of him, and he was the only voice left in the entire venue. Vivian's taste? It's just okay, can't let go in bed. Ethan couldn't bear to take her first time, but didn't he give it to me? Amidst a burst of teasing, he maliciously added a remark. However, once he had it, he lost interest. Someone chuckled softly, in the end, it's just boredom. Asher did not deny it, fell silent for a moment, and then spoke again. When I was pursuing her before, I really put in a lot of effort, I cherished her a lot, but just thinking about how she licked my brother for 8 years and did those things makes me feel disgusted. However, she gave me her first time, and now she is pregnant with my child. Once I've had my fun, as long as she obediently listens and plays the role of a good wife and mother, I will still ensure that she lives a life free from worries about food and clothing. The man continued to laugh and asked, but you disappeared during the wedding banquet today, aren't you afraid she'll go crazy? Don't end up in a situation where you have to chase after your wife like a funeral pyre. Asher smiled faintly and said, she is almost 30 this year, unemployed, without a family, and pregnant with my child. She's going crazy, but what can be done? I stood at the door, watching Asher's nonchalant yet confident expression as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, feeling as if I had swallowed 1,000 needles in my heart. Over the years, Asher has spoiled me in every possible way, he even stopped a flight to confess his feelings to me. During the 3 years he pursued me, he didn't even let me drink a sip of cold water, and when I had my period, he personally washed my hair and feet. Once, I had a minor surgery, and he was worried about the nurse taking care of me, so he personally handled my waist and even helped me wash my underwear. I feel embarrassed and insisted on washing it myself, but he said, washing my wife's underwear will bring me wealth, so don't block my fortune. Later, he asked me why I fell in love with his brother in the first place. I told him it was because, back in school, some boys spread rumors about me, saying I had been at KTV with him. Ethan stood up to testify for me, offended that group of people, and ended up getting beaten and suffering a concussion. Yet I still insisted on my testimony, saving my youth from a catastrophe. My young heart was completely lost. After chasing Ethan for 8 years, I rejected countless suitable boys and turned myself into an old maid. Only then did I finally understand that among all things in the world, emotions are the one thing that cannot be achieved through effort alone. Asher hugged me tightly after hearing this and said, girls don't need to be so humble. Here with me, you just need to be a happy little child. The next day, he returned after disappearing for a day, covered in injuries, and the news broke that Bard, the only son of the Chen group, had been beaten into a disability. Bard, the one who had spread rumors about me back then when he couldn't win me over. The last little gap in my heart was filled by him, the name Ethan was completely expelled from my heart, and Asher moved in. 3 years later, I unexpectedly got pregnant. Mr. Lin was very happy and took us to get the marriage certificate that same day. My pregnancy was severe, so Asher told me to quit my job at the hospital, saying that we had enough money at home. The hospital leadership tried to persuade me, saying that I would soon be evaluated for my professional title, and that I would regret resigning now. While I was still hesitating, Asher directly called the director to help me with the resignation procedures. It turns out that all the deep feelings and romance were fake, just a facade he put on to compete with his half-brother. Tonight's wedding banquet is actually a sharp knife he specially crafted for me, slowly carving out my heart and digging into my bones. It turns out that when the pain reaches its peak, a person cannot shed tears. I no longer have the courage to push open this door, and can only let their words continue to drift into my ears. That pure little star from last time, I think her name is Linda. Asher, have you met her? Asher said softly, almost. She's too innocent, like a child, I can't bear it. Almost? These 3 words are like the last straw that broke the camel's back. The name Linda, I heard it not long ago, is a newcomer under Asher's record label. During the final promotion round, she accidentally exposed herself when she fell, which affected her impression points, and she was eliminated. But she was not one to give up. She knelt before the judges on the spot, pleading for one last chance. She even directly blocked our way to the prenatal checkup, wearing only a thin lady's dress in the icy cold, her eyes red from crying, begging Asher for a chance, saying she would do anything. Asher was moved by her tenacious attitude and personally contacted the judges to eliminate a grassroots male singer. I somewhat disagreed and advised him, as adults, we must take responsibility for our actions. If she falls and misses out, she can just come back next year. Crying and taking away someone else's opportunity is too unfair. Asher said, she prepared for this competition for 8 years. 8 years, which is exactly the time of our entanglement among the 3 of us. I didn't want to make him sad, so I didn't say anything more. I didn't expect that this thorn was planted at that time. The private room was still noisy. I silently turned and left, my tears no longer flowing for him, and I began to call the private hospital and the lawyer. It's been more than 3 months, can I proceed? Without relatives, I take full responsibility for the consequences. Is this lawyer Joe? What materials are needed to file for divorce? I made an appointment with my best doctor friend for surgery in a month. Asher, let's see who can last in this marriage game. Stepping out of the Royal City Bar, light snow began to fall from the sky. It had been 8 or 9 years since Shanghai had seen snow, and in an instant, the cold felt as if all the wind was drilling into one's bones. When I first left my hometown to follow Ethan to this southern city, I was particularly happy. There was no heavy snow weighing down the houses, and one could fall a dozen times on a 10-minute walk. But now it seems like the simple happiness of a past life. These past 10-odd years have been almost like the winter in the south, cold and lingering, with sadness arising for no reason at all. As I slowly walked back, I called my relatives and friends back home. I'm really sorry, Aunt, but you don't need to come over the day after tomorrow, the wedding has been cancelled. Don't come over yet, I'll reimburse you for the wages while you're on leave. I'm fine, don't worry. Finally, I called my mom. She answered quickly in the middle of the night, a bit cautious and somewhat guilty. Vivian, don't worry, I will definitely persuade your dad to come to your wedding. He's just stubborn, you know. Even though he's been angry with you for over a decade, he still saved up more than $500,000 for you, all as your dowry. Is the groom's wedding banquet going smoothly today? Don't tire yourself out too much, you're still pregnant. I haven't spoken for a long time, forcing myself to nod vigorously despite the bitterness in my nose. Mom, I want to eat the iron pot stew that Dad made. My mom happily said to the person next to her, did you hear that? The girl is craving the big goose, so let's drive over ourselves in advance and bring a few big geese to stew fresh, it will taste better. My dad's murmuring voice came through, just thinking about eating this child. On this side of the phone, I suddenly felt less cold, and the heart-wrenching feeling I had just now eased a lot. With a smile through tears, I said, Mom and Dad, you don't need to come over the day after tomorrow, the wedding is cancelled. This year, I'm going home for the new year, and in the future, I won't be going back to Shanghai. Over there was obviously a moment of shock, and it took a long time for my mom's choked voice to come through. All right, going home is good, we're going home, what's the big deal? Mom and Dad will take care of you for a lifetime. My dad sighed deeply. Stubborn child, come home, a golden nest or a silver nest is not as good as our own dog's kennel. Snowflakes drifted into my eyes, cold and painful. After I hung up the phone, I walked aimlessly, and a car behind me kept following silently. Finally, Ethan got out of the car and hugged me tightly. Enough. How long are you going to degrade yourself just to provoke me? I'll tell you right now, I regret it. Is that enough? I forcefully broke free from Ethan's embrace and stepped back in disgust. Ethan, we have no ties anymore, you should now call me your sister-in-law. I have heard everything you wanted me to hear, as for what you think now, it has nothing to do with me. Ethan looked at me in disbelief. Vivian, you have pursued me for 8 years, and everyone knows it. I don't believe you can easily let go. Whether you believe it or not, over the years I haven't had any other women in my heart, and Asher has always liked to compete with me since we were kids, competing for toys, competing for our parents, and later competing for women. Whenever a girl pursued me, he would deliberately try to get close. Asher has always had an extreme personality since he was young. He would do anything to win against me, and today's incident is just the beginning. You have done so much for me while chasing after me, he won't let you off so easily. I laughed miserably. All right, I understand, I won't get involved in your brotherly matters anymore. Can you leave now? Vivian, I actually just wanted to tell you that Ethan irritably ruffled his hair. I think I've liked you for a long time, a long, long time ago. If I had heard such words a few years ago, I would have been very happy. But I am no longer that little girl who was only filled with feelings and love. I just stared at Ethan and mocked. How can I believe what you say, especially when you sent me the address of the bar tonight? Isn't it just to get back at Asher? Ethan, I am 30 this year, not 23 anymore. I'm tired and don't want to play this game of you chasing me and me running away anymore. A flicker of guilt and panic flashed in Ethan's eyes, but he soon regained his resolve. Since you don't believe what I say, let me prove it to you once again, who among us is truly the person you can trust with your life. He forcibly dragged me into the car without saying a word, and I struggled desperately. Ethan directly tore off his tie and bound my hands. The car sped back to a hidden corner at the back door of the Royal City Bar and stopped. Ethan looked at me with a serious yet helpless expression and said, Vivian, if after seeing everything later you can still go on and marry Asher, then I have nothing to say. But if you scream out loud right now, I can only cover your mouth. I glared at him fiercely and saw Ethan pull out his phone, the screen showing a celebrity's Instagram, not many followers, with the latest updates. Brave people enjoy the world first, so what if they are rejected? If I don't take action, I will completely lose him. There are many foundations below that support her. In love, there is no such thing as who comes first, only those who are unloved are the losers. I pinched my palm and looked away. The little star's profile was exactly the demure dress that Linda was wearing right in front of us. Many people were coming in and out of the back door of the bar, and Asher's tall figure stood out prominently in the crowd. He lazily leaned against the wall with his hands in his pockets, a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth, when a slender, frail girl rushed out of a minivan. Although she was bundled up tightly, I still recognized her. It was Linda. The petite girl tightly embraced him, then slowly rose on her tiptoes and gently kissed his thin lips. The purple light ambiguously enveloped the two of them. Asher neither responded nor rejected. I raised my phone to take a picture and said softly, Ethan, take me back. By the time I got home, it was already past 2 a.m. I forced Ethan to leave, and finally, exhausted, I sat down on the cold floor. My fingers aimlessly scrolled through the overwhelming messages on Instagram. After I announced the wedding cancellation, none of them were anything but advice to not make a scene and to endure. You're already 30, you have children, what else can you do? Men are all the same, as long as they are willing to come home in the end. Vivian, how many 8 years can a woman have? Sometimes the muddled days can be a bit easier. TSK, Ethan has chased you for so long, so stop throwing a tantrum, you're going to be a mom now. As long as you have money, that's all that matters. Men will eventually change their hearts. Hold on to your money tightly, treat your husband like a boss, and trust me, sister. Only my dad, who hasn't messaged me in a long, long time, sent a few words. When the sky falls, Dad will hold it up. Be good, remember to eat. I groggily struggled to get up and went to the kitchen, wanting to cook myself a bowl of noodles. When I opened the drawer to get the noodles, I saw a package of already paired exotic dried goods. All of these vacuum bags were personally prepared by Asher, simply because I always eat too simply when I'm at home, and the doctor said I was somewhat malnourished. He then enrolled in a nutrition class, learning bit by bit how to help me improve my health. How can a person have such extreme dual faces? He must have been deeply moved by himself while doing these things, right? A strange smell wafted from the tip of my nose, and my vision gradually blurred as I fell heavily to the ground. When I opened my eyes again, I was already lying on the soft big bed, and the entire space was filled with Asher's suppressed anger. Asher's chin was covered in stubble, his face was marked by exhaustion, and his complexion was at its worst as he raged at the staff around him. A group of useless people only realized that Vivian was poisoned by gas after waiting for me to come back. What have you all been doing? If anything happens to her, I want you to suffer 1,000 times worse than she does. Losing this much weight in just 2 days, are you all dead? Asher violently slammed the medical record in his hand onto the butler's head and followed the family doctor out the door. Look, he seems to really care about me, so much that he even forgot to bring his phone. I entered my birthday and successfully unlocked my phone. The screensaver is our photo together, and my Instagram is clean and empty, with nothing on it. I felt a stir in my heart, locked my phone, and hesitated before entering his bank card password. When I opened it, it was a completely different phone system. One phone actually had 2 systems. The screensaver shows a girl kneeling on the ground barefoot, holding a pair of large men's sneakers, turning back with a bright smile. Youthful and vibrant, captivating the heart and mind. There are only a few people in this system's Instagram, all of whom are Asher's closest friends. The pinned avatar is called Little Fool, a term that feels particularly indulgent and harmless. It's Linda. At first, it was she who unilaterally shared her life. Sometimes it was a lovely stray cat. A particularly special white cloud. Quirky Disney dolls. Even a plate of scrambled eggs with tomatoes that I cooked myself. I see that you seem to like this dish the most. I learned it, am I great? Asher never replied, until she said, I was drugged at the party, and now I'm hiding in the bathroom. I can't hold on any longer. It's a pity no one will help me. I've never even been in a relationship, and now my first time is going to be ruined. Anyway, if that person isn't you, it doesn't matter who it is. Asher replied to her with 3 words a few minutes later. Send location. I remember that day, it was my birthday, and Asher suddenly said there was an urgent matter at the company that he had to attend to. At that moment, I generously said it was fine, that he should hurry and take care of it, and if it got too late, he shouldn't drive back because it wasn't safe. As a result, he really didn't come back that night. The next day, he sent me a necklace worth of fortune, stared at me in silence for a long time, then tightly hugged me, continuously confessing his love, saying he loved me. It turns out that love and guilt sometimes have no boundaries. It turns out he can love me while hating me, just because I pursued Ethan for 8 years. I took screenshots of the chat history and put the phone back in its original place. Asher came in from outside and kissed my neck from behind my ear. Baby, are you angry? Yesterday, there was a fatal incident at the project in Jiangqing, and I had to go deal with it immediately. I didn't want you to worry, so I didn't tell you. I'm sorry, my dear wife, is that okay? After I caught a whiff of the faint women's perfume on him, I felt a wave of nausea and pushed him away. Asher was taken aback, his expression changed for a moment before returning to a smile, and he reached out to ruffle my hair. What's wrong? Is our most understanding and virtuous Mrs. Asher really angry? The wedding banquet yesterday was just our family, nothing important. Tomorrow at the wedding, my husband will definitely perform well, striving to make my mother-in-law 100% satisfied, okay? I promise it won't happen again, and from now on, I won't hide anything from you. He smiled and raised his hand to swear, his beautiful peach blossom eyes seemingly filled with indulgence and affection. Unfortunately, there won't be a next time, Asher, you will never have another chance. I felt a wave of nausea surge in my stomach, and finally couldn't hold it in any longer, vomiting it out. My stomach was empty, filled only with bile. Asher's face changed in fear, not caring about the dirt at all, and immediately picked me up. Vivian, don't scare me. Where do you feel uncomfortable? We'll go to the hospital right away. The terror on his face was so realistic that I almost forgot the nonchalant expression he had last night. Men are all such good actors? Then let's go to Shabai Hospital, I have a classmate working there. I weakly opened my mouth and indeed saw the fleeting rejection on Asher's face. It was because of the last message Linda sent him. Brother, I seem to be torn apart. You don't have to worry about me, I'll go to the hospital by myself. Just focus on dealing with some difficult people, okay? Am I being good? Of course, if you really want to come and see me, this baby will happily send you the location of Shabai Hospital. When Asher got home in the early morning, he transferred 100,000 yuan to her. I try my best. And that difficult person. He did not deny it. Asher still took me to Shabai Hospital, and I deliberately had him help me queue for medicine while I secretly followed behind. In the long line, I indeed saw a girl in a sailor suit joyfully skip over the impatient crowd and cut in line behind Asher, playfully pinching the soft flesh at his waist. Asher turned around with a serious expression, not knowing what to say. She pouted a little unhappily. During the 10 minutes of waiting in line, the girl occasionally poked his back with her delicate fingers, tugged at the hem of his clothes, and quietly hooked his with her pinky finger. A hint of a smile gradually appeared at the corner of Asher's mouth. Helplessly, he pulled her into his arms, tapping her nose, and the girl burst into giggles. Amidst the throng of people, they expressed their subtle affection to their heart's content, and the sense of guilt seemed to add a touch of intrigue to their forbidden love. I raised my phone and snapped a photo. I want to erase this name, Asher, from my heart bit by bit, just like I did before, with his betrayal time and again. The heart still feels a pang of pain, so what? The unresolved feelings will eventually settle. But why is it that the person who betrayed me just a second ago is him? But in the next moment, when the car driving in reverse crashed into me, I reflexively let go of the steering wheel, and the person who rushed over to shield me was him. When blood stained the wedding photo on his phone screen, I wept uncontrollably. I trembled all over, covering the wound on his forehead that was still gushing blood, unable to say a word. But Asher used up the last bit of his strength to kiss my face. It's good that you're okay. The moment he closed his eyes, a sound finally escaped my throat. Asher, is it really so hard to love just one person? I drove calmly to the hospital to call everyone in the Lin family, as composed as I had been during my previous work. Asher was injured in the head and fell into a coma for 3 days, so the wedding was naturally cancelled. I silently kept watch by his bedside, scrolling through Asher's phone, where that girl sent him countless messages every day. Brother, have you listened to my new album? All the songs are written for you. I took my medicine, but my stomach still hurts a lot. I wish you were here. You silly brother, not replying to my messages, I'll punish you to kiss me 100 times next time, I moved. I'm right across from your house, so I can finally see you every day. Tianhai Apartment 308, come over if you want a late-night snack. You haven't replied to me for 3 days, really impressive. You wouldn't have gotten into trouble, would you? Or is that old woman causing a scene again? Knowing that seeing this information would still make me uncontrollably gag, I couldn't help but repeatedly remind myself with this torturous feeling. Do not have the slightest softness towards someone who has already betrayed you, even if they are willing to die for you. Always remember the ugly side of the other person. The good side may be a facade, but the bad side is definitely real. My shoulder was suddenly gently embraced by someone, and I jumped in shock, turning around to find it wasn't Asher who had woken up. It was Ethan's face. His fingers tightened, his voice hoarse. "Don't be sad, you still have me." I reached out and swatted his hand away in disgust, saying, "Don't touch me." A flicker of hurt crossed Ethan's face as he said with red eyes, "Vivian, if you had just persisted a little longer in pursuing me, I would have definitely agreed to you. But why did you stop chasing me?" I looked at him speechless. Is it appropriate to say such things in front of your own brother's hospital bed? When I initially decided to give up on Ethan, he started liking hundreds of my Instagram posts from the past 4 years, even posting some of the gifts I had given him on his own Instagram without any captions. When Asher sees this, he will frantically send me gifts and take me on trips to post photos. The two brothers have been fighting for so many years, and I am just a pawn in their game. Ethan glanced mockingly at the unconscious Asher lying on the bed and said, "The doctor said if he doesn't wake up by tomorrow, he'll be a vegetable for the rest of his life. Are you going to keep vigil for him?" He clicked on Asher's chat interface again. "Moreover, he has already betrayed you, hasn't he? As long as you are willing, I will persuade my parents to sue you for divorce. You can marry me, and our child will still belong to our family." Ethan pointed to his heart. "Vivian, think about me. From the beginning to the end, there has only been you, and there will never be anyone else." I stood up and turned to leave. "Ethan, I can't live without a man. How could I even consider it? There are still more than 20 days left, and I don't even want the child in my belly. Not to mention you all." On the 4th day, the girl finally couldn't sit still anymore and posted a heart-shaped stone on Instagram in the morning. The caption read, "If this isn't love, then I admit defeat." I looked at the stone and felt it was somewhat familiar, as if Asher had given it to me when he confessed his feelings before. It was red. That night, she came directly in front of me and got straight to the point. "Sister, you should know me by now, right? To truly love someone is not to control their body and mind, please set them free." She took a deep breath and solemnly advised me. I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly and asked her, "Asher is already married, did you know?" She just shrugged indifferently. "So what? What era is it? Can't you get a divorce just because you're married?" Then she leaned closer, looking at me with a malicious smile. "Sister, we have done both what we should and shouldn't do. Love does not distinguish between who comes first or last, it is the unloved who are the pitiful ones. Look, you even have fine lines starting at the corners of your eyes. Sister, your time has passed, and I have a career and talent. I'm younger and my looks are no worse than yours, and most importantly, I have only loved Asher. What do you have to argue with me about, sister? Is it with that heart of yours that has been with other men? Aren't you ashamed?" I lowered my gaze, a pain in my stomach like a knife twisting, yet my face remained expressionless. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Asher's mom. "Asher is awake, hurry over." I suddenly got up, feeling a sense of relief in my heart. If Asher really became a vegetable, it would be almost impossible for me to think about divorce. The Lynn family would definitely tie me to him for a lifetime. Linda was startled by my actions and instinctively raised her hand to shield her face. "What kind of madness are you trying to unleash? A woman's hysterical appearance is the ugliest, and Asher will only dislike you more." I smiled slightly. "What a pity." She looked a bit confused. "What a pity about what?" "What a pity that you know the truth. As long as I am still Asher's legal wife, you will always be like a rat stealing in the gutter, the mistress everyone wants to chase away. You are wearing the designer clothes and bag he bought for you, all of which are our marital property. I can make you take them off one by one, you know." After saying that, I turned and left. Linda's face looked extremely ugly, and she shouted angrily at my back. "Vivian, you really have no shame. He doesn't love you anymore, yet you still want to occupy a place by his side. You really are someone who has been a devoted follower for 8 years." I turned around and saw her face twisted in anger. The tablecloth she was gripping had become misshapen, and everyone in the cafe was looking at us. I placed a finger on my lips to shush, smiling slightly. "Linda, the hysterical woman, is very ugly." I stopped the recording on my phone and walked away without looking back. If a man who cheats should swallow 10,000 needles, then a woman who knows and tolerates should swallow 1,000 needles as well. As I reached the door of the hospital room, I heard Asher's mother's voice, both happy and anxious. How could he forget even his mother? He only remembered Vivian. It really was true that one forgets their mother once they have a wife. Do you still remember Linda? Ethan asked in a deep voice. Asher shook his head indifferently. I don't know her. What about Vivian? Where is Vivian? He twitched his ear, looked over at me, and a pure, youthful smile from years ago appeared on his face as he immediately walked towards me. Vivian, are you okay? That female colleague didn't trouble you again yesterday, did she? I was taken aback and looked at the doctor beside me. The doctor shook his head regretfully. The patient's memory had stopped 3 years ago, and he had forgotten many people and things, only remembering the person he cared about most deep down. However, this situation is very common. As long as you accompany him in recalling the most memorable things from the past, he will gradually remember. Asher's mother looked at me with eager anticipation, her eyes filled with pleading. Vivian, I entrust everything to you. Don't worry, your wedding will still take place on the 3rd of next month. I gripped the recording phone until my fingertips turned white, and I heard my own hoarse voice. All right, I will make him remember our past well. It seems that even the heavens think my revenge is too little, insisting that I give him a memory that kills both body and soul. I am really looking forward to it, waiting for Asher to relive our past and fall in love with me again, joyfully preparing for the wedding. I just realized that I had already hit the child while in the process of suing for divorce. What kind of expression would that be? It must be quite spectacular, right? The Lin family helped us arrange that grand aerial proposal 3 years ago, which Asher had personally prepared for a month. In that small notebook, every little detail he had done at that time was recorded. Asher looked at the notebook and shed tears. Vivian, I'm sorry I forgot our past, but I want to start over. I would still love you without hesitation. Please, agree to me one more time, I beg you. He held me tightly, as if I were a treasure lost and found, wanting to embed me within his own body. I have a faint smile on my face. That depends on your performance. After all, you have amnesia, and no one knows if over the years, you have ever had feelings for someone else. Last night, I linked his other system Instagram to the tablet. The unlimited family card he gave to Linda has daily spending orders. She sent him a photo on Instagram. Brother, even if I am despised by thousands, I am willing to do it for you. Brother, I really feel for you. She won't let go easily, and I won't either. I'll wait for you, I'll wait for you. I casually logged into his delivery platform again, and everything he needed, food, clothing, and daily necessities, was all there, sent directly to him at the company by Linda. All the items were precisely those I had given to Ethan over those 8 years. It turns out that Asher was secretly taking revenge on me with another girl's affection when I couldn't see. But at this moment, he had a face full of solemnity. It's impossible, I will absolutely never fall for another person again. Vivian, you are the dream I've been anxious about for 8 years. How many times have I woken up crying, thinking it was too late, only to realize it was just the right time. I laughed happily. Really? Asher raised his hand and swore, if I, Asher, fall for any woman other than Vivian, let me be struck by lightning and hit by a car. I held his hand. Okay, I believe you. Just kidding. During the half-month that Asher prepared, we revisited many places of happy memories. We watched the stars on the mountaintop, set off fireworks by the sea, watched the sunset, and chased seagulls. In the morning, he had a snowball fight in the icy world, and in the afternoon, he dazedly wandered in the warm sea of flowers in Yunnan. His condition improved day by day, and he remembered many people and things. As my gaze grew increasingly affectionate and lingering, my eyes shone with astonishing brightness. He seemed to love me more and more, as if he wanted to pour out his very heart. Meanwhile, I was silently counting the days. On the morning of the wedding day for proposal number 3, I signed the surgery notification. Asher's aerial proposal this time was even more grand than the last, hiring the largest media company in Shanghai to film the entire process and broadcast it live online. The suit he wore was selected from over 1,000 handcrafted custom options, echoing the dress I was wearing. The flowers in my hands, each one just airlifted from Italy, each adorned with a ring, exactly 29 in total. He said, "Vivian, I couldn't be with you every moment of the past 29 years of your life, but for the rest of my life, I want to be a part of every moment with you. We will have many, many lovely children, and I will take you all around the world to see the sunrise and sunset, to watch the flowers bloom." Asher walked towards me with a face full of smiles, holding flowers, while the people on the plane cheered in unison. "Marry him, marry him." He finally walked up to me and said the exact same words he had used 3 years ago when he proposed. "Vivian, there was a time when the vast sea was not water, and the Wushan mountains were not floating clouds. I want no one but you and me." He knelt on one knee, the tears in his eyes and the excitement in his heart seemed genuine, clearly recalling more memories. Except for the clouds over Wushan, how many people know that the author of this line of poetry was already involved with another woman in a brothel while his wife was gravely ill, and shortly after writing this poem, he took a concubine? Since ancient times, men have often been heartless, all the glamorous surfaces are merely their veils of shame. Then I will accompany him to finish this play, a beautiful and moving illusion, waiting for the performance to end and the people to disperse. I took the bouquet from his hands, okay. Just as I said this word, the helicopter landed on the luxurious rooftop of the Lin Group. Asher solemnly led me down, just about to put the wedding ring back on my hand. Suddenly, a girl burst out of the crowd, running with all her might. She was wearing a white tulle dress, topped with a large Armani men's coat, like the protagonist of this wedding. It was Linda. She wore a smile on her face, her eyes filled with infatuation, yet tears streamed down. "Brother, I met the soft-hearted deity right after my graduation, you are my first love. I don't care if others call me love-struck or say I'm foolish. Today, I bet everything I have, I bet you won't let me lose." The festive atmosphere in the entire venue instantly froze, and the sound of a pin dropping could be heard in the air. I looked at Asher's expression, he showed no anger or shock, but rather looked at her with a complex gaze. "Stop it, let's go back," I said. Linda stubbornly replied, "No. The man I love is going to be with someone else, and I am not the bride, don't even think that I will bless you both." Her face was full of tears, crying heartbreakingly. I couldn't describe the feeling, as if I were watching someone else's farce. There was no heartache like before. It turns out that after accumulating enough disappointment, the withdrawal reaction is much simpler than I had imagined. The more sunk costs he invested over the years and days, the more painful it would be for him when he finally learned the truth. I do not regret having loved him. At that time, Vivian needed a redemption, called love. The current Vivian is willing to take the gamble and accept the outcome. Having crossed this hurdle, the path ahead is smooth. Suddenly, a scream erupted from the crowd. "Stop her quickly, she's going to jump." Asher, who was still holding the wedding ring in front of me, suddenly came to his senses and gently spoke to me as he withdrew his hand with the ring. "Wife, I'm going to take a look, we can't let our joyous day be marred by death." I smiled and nodded, and he breathed a sigh of relief, thinking I was compromising, then turned and rushed out. My hand was suddenly grasped by someone, and a dazzling, magnificent diamond ring was placed on my fingertip. Ethan's tall figure stood in front of me. "Linda is the one I brought in, can't you see that yet?" Even if Asher has lost his memory, he still can't let go of that woman. My hand hung down, and the ring slipped off my fingertip and fell to the ground, shattering into several pieces. You see, they all say they love me, yet they don't even know the size of my fingers. I laughed mockingly, "Should I thank you for that?" Ethan looked at me seriously and said, "Vivian, I was too young before to know what love really was, but I have become accustomed to you always being by my side, accustomed to someone cooking soup when it's cold and someone bringing an umbrella when it rains." Only then did I realize that I didn't know when it started, but my heart had already fallen. Asher's feelings for you are definitely not simple, you can still turn back now. I almost want to applaud him. I never knew Ethan could say such touching words. Some things must be proven precious through their disappearance, like a person's sincerity and affection. Searching for them after losing them makes one seem so sentimental and nostalgic. Ethan, if there was even a trace of true feelings for you back then, it has been worn away by your harassment over the past 3 years. Now, even if there were only you two brothers left in the world, I wouldn't be tempted in the slightest. You two have fought for so many years that sometimes I even wonder if you are in a love-hate relationship. Ethan's face looked terrible. Is this how you see me? Vivian, it was you who asked me for a chance to try before. What does that count for? I've given it to you now, don't take it for granted. I glanced him up and down. I must have been blind before. Anger flared on Ethan's face as he directly pulled me towards Asher and Linda. The crowd watched him pull my hand and let out a chorus of hisses. As expected, tomorrow the news about the Lynn brothers, each one more extravagant than the last, would make the headlines. Linda sat on the railing of the 18th floor, the strong wind threatening to blow her off balance. Asher stood nearby, sweating anxiously, and gently reassured her, "Come down first, we can discuss things." Linda cried and forced a trembling smile, "Brother, I hope you are truly happy today. But there is no one in this world who loves you more than I do." In the crowd, a young girl curled her lip in disdain. Mad, this was the first time in her life she had seen such an arrogant mistress. Asher turned around and coldly glanced at the girl. "Get lost." The girl didn't know which rich family she belonged to, and she wasn't afraid of him at all. She flipped him the bird and turned to leave. A woman should get 1 slap, while a man should get 10. Asher's face looked extremely bad, and it turned even greener when he saw Ethan pulling my hand. Ethan whistled and laughed. "Vivian, did you see? This is the little thing he has been keeping outside, precious indeed." "Ethan, what the hell are you doing? She's your sister-in-law now, try touching her again and see what happens." Asher's face flashed with panic, then he gently reassured me. "Wife, don't listen to my brother's nonsense, I don't know her at all." He wanted to rush over, but he was also concerned about Linda, who was about to jump, caught in a dilemma. Ethan looked at him mockingly. "Stop pretending, Asher. You regained your memory a long time ago. Didn't you make a bet with me when you were pursuing Vivian? It wasn't just Vivian, there would be other women too. As long as I liked them, you had to compete for them. Have you been pretending for so long that you've even fooled yourself? How dare you say you don't know this woman? Then let her jump, there are already rescuers below, she won't die." Asher's face was filled with terror. "Vivian, it's not like that, I didn't mean it, let me go back and explain to you." Ethan leaned closer to him and whispered, "After all, you're just as low as your mother, a bastard who steals from others and then kicks them while they're down." Asher couldn't hold back any longer and punched Ethan in the face. "You're fucking asking for it." During their fight, Linda jumped from the building and was sent to the hospital. The police took everyone to make a statement, and Asher held me tightly, not letting go. "Vivian, you won't believe it, right? You know Ethan is deliberately trying to sow discord between us. That girl is the one I helped once, her mental state was a bit unstable, and she kept bothering me." I still wore a smile on my face, and there was no longer a trace of pain in my heart. A man's lies have always been clumsy, it's just that when you love him, you brainwash yourself into believing them. When you don't love him, you can see through them at a glance. I gently pushed his hand away. "Asher, let's just forget it." His eyes instantly turned red. "Vivian, if you don't believe me, what can I do for you to believe that I love you?" With a clang, he smashed his fist against the glass window behind me, blood covering his knuckles. Asher easily resorts to self-harm when he's emotional. If it were before, I would have definitely held him tightly, forgiving everything that made him angry. But now, I just glanced at him. "Asher, I saw all the things she sent to the company for you, they are all the same as what I used to send to Ethan. No matter how well you disguise it, there will always be Ethan's shadow between us. In fact, your love has never been pure. Asher, when I asked you back then if you really didn't mind my relationship with Ethan, you said that a true heart should never be judged by others, and that you only wanted me to be happy. At that moment, I decided to turn the page on the past. He suddenly reached out and slapped himself hard across the face. Vivian, for the sake of our child in your belly from this car accident, I beg you for another chance. I will handle everything well. If you are not satisfied, you can let me die, and I won't even blink. I closed my eyes and remained silent for a long time, until a drop of scalding tear fell onto my hand. I said with a trembling voice, "Okay. So this is what it feels like to lie." Asher was overjoyed, carefully placing the wedding ring on my hand and holding me tightly. "Vivian, never take it off in this lifetime, don't leave me." Then he smiled like a child, gently reaching out to stroke my lower abdomen, his face filled with the relief of having survived a disaster. "Fortunately, we already got our certificate and there's a little one in my belly, otherwise, I would really be afraid you would run away. When you have the baby, I'll take you back to your hometown to have a look, okay? After all these years, your parents must miss you a lot." I just smiled faintly. After he comforted me, I went to the hospital where Linda was. I heard that the firefighters caught her when she jumped, but she still broke both her legs. Coincidentally, my surgery at 3 in the afternoon is also at this hospital. After Linda woke up, the first thing she did was post on Instagram. The first person she saw upon waking was you, and that makes everything I've given worthwhile. The picture is of Asher standing by the window, smoking. It was just like the time when I first rejected his confession. He spent the whole night smoking in solitude. What I said at the time was, "You are his brother, and it is well known that I pursued him. If we were together, you would inevitably have comparisons, which would lead to resentment. You might seek comfort from other girls, which would not be good for either of us. Let's just be friends." Asher said at that time, "It is precisely because I understand everything you have done that I feel heartache. I have silently followed you for 8 years, and this time I want to stand by your side." I never expected that this sentence would actually come true. The surgery hurt so much that I was drenched in cold sweat, but just thinking about being free soon made me happy. I returned to the Lynn family's villa and packed all my things, leaving not a trace behind. All the gifts Asher has given me over the years have been burned by me. Finally, I placed the surgical documents and a neatly arranged divorce petition on the table. I can imagine how devastated Asher will be when he joyfully returns to see this big surprise. I called for a car and went to the airport without looking back. In a few days, it will be the new year, and the bustling crowd at the airport all wore smiles, radiating joy. I couldn't help but be affected by it. Posted an Instagram. "Where in life is there no fog? The east corner has passed, but it's not too late for the mulberry and elm. Not all encounters will have an ending, so let's give time, let the past be the past, and let the beginning begin." A good friend in Russia liked my post, "Vivian, please perk up." Asher called me frantically, and I blocked and deleted all his contact information. It takes only 3 hours to travel from the south to the north, yet I have been lost for 11 years. I met the wrong people, cried and laughed, but in the end, they were all just passers-by. Life is not just about love. I think there are many meaningful things I still want to do. Asher, never to be seen again. Returning to my hometown, my parents didn't ask anything, and we all happily ate from the iron pot stew. After the new year, I was invited to Russia to participate in the initial establishment of an international rescue project. A friend from the hospital called me to vent. "Your almost ex-husband is too crazy. He has caused a scene at the hospital several times, insisting that we explain who killed his child. Everyone is afraid of him now, looking so haggard. He even offered a huge reward to find you, and we classmates have all been harassed by him, being bombarded with money." I chuckled lightly. "You've worked hard, when do you have time to come to Russia for a visit?" "I'll cover everything." She asked me with a grin, "Have you really let go so quickly? Can you truly be at peace with everything you've given over the years?" I said lightly, "Do you still remember the first economics class we had? Sunk costs do not factor into major decisions." Getting on the wrong bus and swiping your card doesn't mean you can just sit there because you paid, you need to get off immediately. The classmate laughed heartily. That's good. You're excellent in everything when it comes to studying, but you've fallen for a man. This scumbag isn't worth your attention. What happened that day made the news, that Linda broke her legs and was exposed for being a homewrecker. Now she's been banned from the entire internet. Every day, people go to the hospital to throw rotten eggs at her. It's truly satisfying that she got what she deserved for being a third party. I feel like I'm listening to someone else's story, and I find it quite fascinating. The divorce lawsuit had been stalled for a year, and I had also had a lovely mixed-race little girl through IVF in Russia. When Asher caught up with me in Russia, I was building a snowman with the child. Suddenly, my phone received a call from the police, saying that a man was threatening to jump from the 18th floor and specifically requested to see me. I frowned in annoyance, feeling nothing but bad luck. When I rushed over with the child, Asher's thin figure turned around, his face haggard as if he had been seriously ill. He cried and laughed. "Vivian, I knew you couldn't bear to see me die. I know I hurt you, but I will always remember the night I caught you. I wanted to show off to the whole world. Everything I have done, I will spend the rest of my life making up for it. I only ask for one chance from you." I shook my head coldly. "Asher, what's done is done and cannot be undone. I've already let go, please do not disturb my life again." Asher laughed bitterly. "You liar, you clearly promised me that you would wait until I handled everything, but what I didn't expect was that you had already handled everything for us. Now I beg you with my life, won't you turn back and look at me just once?" I looked at him coldly. "Asher, your feigned affection is tiresome, I've had enough of it, just go and stop bothering me." His face instantly turned pale. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, you've never been this indifferent to me. Whether you believe it or not, I really haven't touched Linda. It's a pity you don't believe me, right?" He smiled self-deprecatingly. At the last moment, I stopped, because as soon as I thought of your face, I felt overwhelming guilt and couldn't go on. I saw the recordings and photos you left behind, and only then did I realize how ridiculously immature I was, and how wrong I was, to hurt you so deeply for the sake of my so-called unwillingness to accept it. Asher repeated frantically, "I didn't betray you, I didn't." I calmly turned around with my daughter in my arms. "Mom, who is that person?" "A madman." Later, Ethan came to find me once. The moment he saw my daughter, he gave a self-deprecating smile, touched her hair, and turned to leave. "Vivian, I missed it once and it's a lifetime, take care of yourself." Asher stuck around us like a piece of toffee, and whenever our eyes met, he would show a pleading look. I could only turn a blind eye. But I didn't expect him to be crazy enough to follow me to the snow-capped mountains for a rescue. At an altitude of several thousand meters, when a massive rock fell during an avalanche, he rushed up and pushed me away. When the Lin family came to take away his body, I realized that Asher had long left a will. He agreed to the divorce, and all the property was awarded to Vivian as compensation for the fault. The last handful of yellow earth fell, and it was truly the end between us. I also arranged permanent residency for my parents, and the Lin family has not contacted me again. This year, some see dust, while others see stars. But it doesn't matter, we've turned the page. From now on, we leap into the sea of people, each with our own storms and brilliance.